I think so, yeah.
Welcome back to Law News Network. I'm Heather Hansen. Happy Halloween. We are here today doing sort of a mix-up, a monster mash of different cases and different issues for you today. We've been talking about the Jeffrey Willis case because that case is ongoing. As you know, last week the judge ordered all cameras off. So we've been following that case via audio, and we expect that case to start back up sometime later on this week, hopefully tomorrow. In the meantime, though, we also got a verdict in the Toledo case on Friday. That verdict was a guilty verdict. And since the death penalty is on the table, we expect that case to start back up in the death penalty phase later on this week as well. In just a minute, we're going to be playing some pieces of the Toledo trial for you to get you back and up to speed on that case. And remember, we're starting a new case as soon as tomorrow. That's the Adam Matos case. He is alleged to have killed 4 people, his ex-girlfriend, her boyfriend, and her parents, and to have taken his child as part of that crime. It's a terrible crime. We'll be following it gavel to gavel. There's Adam Matos there on the screen. But before we get to all of that, we have a fabulous guest today and a fabulous topic that one of the members of the chat room, Kit Kat, came up with, and I think that this is really interesting and something I wanted to talk about. I have Yosha Gunasekera here with me today to talk about all of these cases, but I wanted to talk to you about this story that Kit Kat put up in one of the chat rooms, and I thought it was fascinating. In Maui, in Florida, this man, Darren Young, was accused of harassing his ex-girlfriend, and there was some sort of a restraining order in place, and he violated that restraining order and wrote her 144 text messages, some of them nasty, certainly harassing. He served 157 days in jail. So I don't want anyone to think that he did not do any time, because he did do some time. He served 157 days in jail. He had to pay a fine. I think it was $2,400. But in addition to that, Yosha, he has to write her 144 different compliments to counter the 144 nasty text messages that he sent. What do you think of that?
It's definitely an unusual punishment here by the judge, but you see these occasionally, judges writing up unique punishments for certain crimes. And as you said, he did face jail time, so he's definitely facing some harsh repercussions. But it's interesting. I mean, I don't know if she would even want the compliments. Maybe she doesn't want to be in touch with him at all.
That's true, and that's actually a really good point, because people who are the victim of sexual harassment or these types of things oftentimes want no contact whatsoever. And I do get the sense from the article that it's going to be written and not text messaged. But I think your point is well taken, that she probably wants nothing to do with him and certainly doesn't want his compliments. At the same time, it is an interesting way to sort of say, you know, here's another way for you to learn a lesson. And you were telling me that you've seen things like this happen in your own practice. Tell me about that.
Yes, I've had, in one instance, I had a judge have one of my clients sit in court all day and then write an essay of what he observed in court, which was really interesting. He wrote, I believe it was 10 pages. He was there all day, and it's just an interesting way to do some kind of alternative form of justice.
Well, and I think that that's certainly interesting and sometimes equitable. You know, a lot of times there's a judge on Facebook that oftentimes you see, he's out of Providence, and sometimes it comes up on my Facebook page, where he'll talk to the people who are accused of speeding. It's usually smaller crimes, but he'll often come up with some sort of an alternative resolution. And I do think that when you have judges that are good and trustworthy and that are able to do this, it can be very effective. I also think in civil cases we're seeing this more and more, where mediations occur, and when you have a situation where someone has been wronged or someone has been hurt, a lot of times a letter of apology or a statement of apology, or a plaque in a room somewhere or something, can also help to get the case resolved, because it gives the person on the hurt end of a lawsuit some sort of closure and some sort of feeling like it's not just money, but something has been changed.
And it definitely all sends a message. I mean, we know about this case because it's in the news. So it's a very unique way to get a certain result. And I think it's really indicative of the move towards alternatives to incarceration. I mean, in this case, this person ended up doing 5 months in jail, but we see more and more judges are not wanting to incarcerate people and are trying to find other unique ways to address underlying issues.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you know, sometimes I tend to lean towards incarceration incarceration is better for people who could be a danger to someone, as this case may be, and maybe less so for drug offenders. So maybe to have some drug offenders do some public service, or to do some, going to some drug rehab centers, that type of thing is certainly a way to avoid jail time and yet have perhaps some rehabilitation occur.
Definitely, because I think it's getting at the underlying problem. Sometimes when you send someone who abuses drugs just to jail, they come out and they do it again, versus sending them to, some sort of therapy, getting them on some sort of medication, so they're actually not re-entering the criminal justice system. It's kind of nipping the problem in the bud, so to speak.
Now, I want to talk to you about 144 compliments, though. As I saw that come up online, I was like, I don't know that there's anyone that I could come up with 144 compliments about. It's really an interesting exercise. I'm sure that we will not hear the 144 compliments, but I'd love to see them, because I think you start to get to the point where you're like, you have nice shoes.
I know. It must be very hard. And I just quickly glanced at an article online about it, and apparently the judge said no repeating words.
No repeating words.
I can't even imagine how you would be able to do 144 compliments without repeating some words. I'm sure he's going to have to pull out a thesaurus or something.
Absolutely. Start speaking in other languages. Yeah. This is your homework for today, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have any trials. Take someone that you love and write 144 compliments about them. I bet that would do some good things for some relationships if we all wrote 144 compliments. I don't know if I could do it. We are going to go back to Toledo in just a few minutes during our next break from watching some of these trials. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Amazon new offering, where they're talking about having people come into your home to deliver your packages. Again, you guys started talking about this in the chat room, and I grabbed it and said to Yosha, let's talk about it, because there are legal issues that can stem from this idea. I know some of you are talking about it now and find it a little bit uncomfortable, but it also can be helpful for those that are homebound or those that have other issues. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So bring on your questions, bring on your comments, and in about 10 minutes or so, we'll be ready to talk about that particular issue. In the meantime, though, we want to go back to the Toledo case, because that case is certainly not over. Louis Toledo faces the death penalty for the murder of his ex and her 2 children, a terrible case that we have been covering for quite some time. As part of the death penalty, we anticipate the death penalty part of the trial to begin this week. And Yosha, I've been saying since covering this case that the way that Toledo threw his neighbor and friend, Tyshawn Jackson, under the bus could hurt him in this phase of the case. I think that Tyshawn Jackson was such a likable and credible witness that even if it's just subconsciously, some of the jurors may be even more angry with Toledo for having put him in this position. So what I'd like to do is show the testimony of Tyshawn Jackson, and then Yosha and I will come back and talk about that a little bit and how we think that will impact the death penalty phase, and we'll be talking about Amazon. So bring on your questions and comments, and we'll be back.
Develop a relationship with Mr. Toledo and the children who live next door.
This is like around the summer of 2013 when I started going to barbering school.
You went to barber school too, right?
Yes, sir.
Did he go to barber school before you did?
Yes, he did.
Was that a large part of the reason that you went to barber school?
Yes, sir.
Before you started going to barber school, had you ever spent any time with that man?
No, sir.
How long had you lived in your home at that point?
I want to say at least 6 or 7 years.
And how long had he lived there, next door?
At least like 2 or 3 years already.
Okay. Did you ever talk to him?
Not really.
Describe your relationship prior to barber school.
Just like hi, bye, pretty much that's it. Just saying hi to him.
Were you the kind of neighbor that would wave when you go to the mailbox?
Yeah, not all the time. I'll say hi when somebody says it to me.
Anything more sophisticated or more entailed than just hi and bye and waving occasionally?
No, sir.
Would you call him a friend at that point?
Not at that moment.
What did you do after school, typically? What were some of the things that you did?
If I didn't have to go to work, I would record music.
What kind of music?
Mostly hip hop.
Do you have a mixing studio in your house that you use for friends?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a girlfriend?
Yes, sir.
How long had you been together with your girlfriend?
Probably about a month prior.
What was her name?
Courtney.
You still with Courtney?
Yes, sir.
She's the mother of your children?
Yes, sir.
Now, at this point in your life, you had gotten into a little bit of trouble, right?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you tell us about that?
I would say probably a month prior, I had the police come to my house. They came and did a search warrant of my house and found marijuana at my house.
Did you get convicted at some point of a burglary as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, tell us about the burglary, please.
It was probably almost the summer of 2012. I was in my senior year. Pretty much the problem was coming up, and my mom was working pretty hard, and I didn't want to ask her for like money for prom and stuff, so I took it upon myself to go figure out a way to get it. So I was stupid and young pretty much, and tried to figure out a way to get it without asking my mom, and burglarized the school.
What'd you do?
We were trying to take some computers.
Do you regret doing that?
Yes, sir.
Has it made it difficult to find work in your life since then?
Yeah, pretty hard, honestly. I got.
In October of 2013, were you still on probation for this offense?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember your cell phone in October of 2013? What number it was?
I don't remember the number by heart.
If I read you a number, do you think you'd recognize it?
Yeah.
386-960-3604?
Yes.
Is that your number?
Yes.
Was your mom's telephone number 407-272-3105?
Yes.
Now, you've already told us that the defendant lived next door.
Yes, sir.
You see him here in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Could you point him out? Tell us what he's wearing, please.
He's wearing black with glasses and a jacket.
Was he married at the time that he lived next door?
Yes, sir.
Did his wife have children?
Yes, sir.
How old were the kids?
Like around 6 or 7.
Was there a large age gap between you and the defendant?
Yes.
Was his life very different than yours?
Yes.
Was it enrolling in barber college that really allowed you to get to know the defendant?
Yes, sir.
Tell us how you came to know him over that time.
Pretty much he'd take me to school every day, and we have classes together, so we got to talk more.
Did you have a car at that time?
Me? No.
So really, he was your way to improve your life.
Yes, sir.
Did you spend time together in your classes? I know you said you had classes together.
Yes, sir.
Did you study together?
Yes, sir.
Do you know the name Robin Roberts?
Yes.
How do you know Robin Roberts?
I'm from school.
Was she also a good friend and confidant to you?
Yes.
When school would end in the afternoons, did you and the defendant go straight home?
Yes, most of the time.
Did you end up spending some time at his house?
Yes.
Tell us some of the things that you would do with him.
Pretty much just play video games.
Were the children there?
Yes.
What'd you do with the children?
Sometimes I play basketball with the kids or help them with homework, help Toledo, like, do backflips and stuff for her because she wanted to learn how to do backflips for cheerleading. And, pretty much, that's pretty much about it.
Did you like the kids?
Yeah.
Did you have anything to do with their death?
No.
Keep going.
Did you ever spend time with the defendant's wife, Jasenia?
No.
Did you have anything to do with her death?
No.
What time did Jasenia usually come home from school in the afternoons?
No.
And then go straight home?
Yes, most of the time.
Did you end up spending some time at his house?
Yes.
Tell us some of the things that you would do with him.
Pretty much just play video games.
Were the children there?
Yes.
What'd you do with the children?
Sometimes I play basketball with the kids or help them with homework, help Toledo like do backflips and stuff for her because she wanted to learn how to do backflips for cheerleading, and pretty much that's pretty much about it.
Do you like the kids?
Yeah, they're nice kids.
Do you feel close to them?
Yes.
Do you have anything to do with their death?
No.
Keep going.
Did you ever spend time with the defendant's wife, Jasenia?
No.
Do you have anything to do with her death?
No.
What time did Jasenia usually come home from school in the afternoons?
No, no.
You need a second? Has this been difficult for you, Mr. Jackson?
Overall.
Yes.
Did you ultimately learn that the defendant blamed the death of his children on you?
Yes, sir.
I mean, you weren't even there, were you?
No, sir.
I want to go back to Jasenia for just a minute. She was a busy woman, wasn't she?
Yes, sir.
Did you know she was going to school and working at the same time?
Yes.
When she came home in the evenings, did you hang out a whole lot longer?
No, sir.
Why not?
Usually kind of indicated it was family time for me, and like pretty much it's time for me to go.
Did you ever see Jasenia upset with her husband?
At times.
What was she typically upset about?
Just like normal stuff around the house, like laundry, kids' homework, just normal stuff.
Was it arguments? Was it fist fights? Give us an idea.
I think it's seen as fist fights, but I know there's arguments.
Did she have really high standards?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Sustain, can you rephrase the
Sure.
question?
Did she want her kids' grades to be perfect?
Pretty much, yes.
Did
She
she
expected the high of them, yes.
Okay. Did she want the house to be very clean?
Yes, she's very cleanly.
Did she want laundry folded and dinner cooked?
Yes, from what I've seen.
Did the defendant ever talk to you about his marital problems or arguments that he'd have with his wife?
Occasionally, we never got too deep into it.
Was it clear to you that he didn't feel appreciated for the things he did around the home?
A little bit. He complained about it.
Did you become aware at some point that they were going to have a divorce or that they were getting divorced?
Yes, towards the end. Last couple of days in school, I've seen him. He spoke about it.
Was school ending in October? You say it was towards the end of the school.
But towards before he stopped going, before all this trial stuff happened.
In October of 2013, did the defendant change fields from barber to HVAC air conditioning?
Yes, sir.
Did he ever tell you why he did that?
Pretty much because of money and more stable. Like, it feels a little more stable.
Could he still attend the same school and attend the HVAC classes or the air conditioning classes?
Yes, it's the same school.
Did you continue to ride with him during that period of time?
No, our schedule was conflicted. It's different scheduling.
How far in advance of these murders on October 23rd, 2013, did the defendant... Before October 23rd of 13, did you know that Yosha Suarez had gone on a business trip?
Yes, I heard of it.
Okay. Did you know the length, the duration of the trip, and where she had gone?
Yes, I believe he told me a week.
Is it possible that it was only Sunday to Wednesday?
Yes, it's possible. I don't really remember exactly.
Did you know that she had gone to Alabama? Did you know any of the details?
Yeah.
Sustained.
Did you know any of the details of the trip?
Yeah, she told me a few things about it, that she's going to Alabama for a trip, for a business trip.
When was the first time with respect to her return that you heard about the defendant getting a divorce?
I don't exactly remember. I want to say like a Monday or something, or maybe the same day she got back or the next day. It's a long time ago, I don't remember exactly, but I know it was during school. He came to me. Sorry. After she got back during school, he came to me and told me about, I guess, a few problems they were having. I didn't go too far into detail with him.
Why didn't you go into detail with him?
Pretty much it's like it wasn't really my business. Like it's a little awkward talking about a guy getting divorced to his wife. I kind of want to stay out of it.
After that point where you had that conversation with the defendant, did his behavior change?
A little bit. I didn't really see him as much, so I can't really say I hung around too much to tell like how much his behavior changed. But he didn't seem like the want to help everybody out type of semi he usually is, you know.
And you just referred to him as Semi, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was that the nickname that you called him?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever hear the defendant telling someone at school that he was checking Jasenia's phone records?
Yes, I heard of it.
Did the defendant also say that he had copies of her records to see if she was cheating?
Yes, I heard something of that too.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back to Law News Network. I'm Heather Hansen here with Yosha, and we are talking about the Toledo case. And you and I were talking a little bit while we were listening to Tyshawn Jackson testify again. And I've always felt as though Louis Toledo putting the blame on Jackson was a mistake because, you know, not only did it obviously not help him in the liability phase, but also I think in the death penalty phase, there are a lot of people who are going to look at Jackson crying there about being accused of killing those two young children and feel even more animosity towards Toledo. What do you think about that?
I think that's right. I think Tyshawn Jackson was a very sympathetic person on the stand. He's very emotional. He obviously, you know, really cared about those kids, had grown close to the family, and then for Toledo to just turn around and accuse him of these horrific murders, it doesn't look good, and it also just looks like he's continually shifting the blame, which is never good, and would definitely play into bad inference for the death penalty phase.
Right, and you made another point about a bad inference for the death penalty phase, and what was that?
Oh, that was,
timing.
yes. They only took one day to reach a verdict. And I think that is especially significant because in cases this serious, when multiple people are murdered, you expect a verdict to take days. I've seen even misdemeanor trials deliberate for longer than one day. So that, you know, shows you what the jurors are thinking. They were pretty sure that he was guilty. They only had to deliberate for a few hours, and the consequences are very severe. It's either the death penalty or life in jail. And so that was a pretty quick decision, and I don't think it bodes well for Toledo.
Yeah, he still has the opportunity to put on mitigating evidence. Now, he has indicated that he doesn't want to. At the end of his, when we got the verdict, he said that I don't want to put on any evidence and just put me to death. And the judge had said that we'll talk about that later. How do you think that that part of the case will play out? How much of an impact does whether he wants to put on any evidence or not actually play?
I think the defense attorneys will still go forward and try to present some mitigating evidence. That is their job. Their job is at this point to avoid their client facing the death penalty, and to not present anything would be certainly terrible. At this point, at the death penalty phasing, you can put, you know, any abuse that he's faced, you know, paint a picture of him as a human who has suffered, and have the jury see a side of him that they were unable to see. And so if the lawyers were unable to put on that evidence, it would certainly be bad. And I don't think, even if he doesn't want them to put on evidence, I still think that they could. I don't think it's up to him.
Right.
Ultimately.
It's probably going to be a conversation between the lawyers and the judge, and he'll have some input. You know, there are many who would say that given that he's asked for it, rather than using the resources to continue with this trial, it may be worthwhile. But there could be an appellate issue with that, couldn't there?
There could definitely be a appellate issue. I think the only way he could avoid putting on any mitigating defenses in that stage was to fire his lawyers and go pro se. We've seen that in some cases
Right.
where they didn't want to put on any mitigating information for whatever reason. It was too personal. And still, I think that presents an appellate issue.
Yeah, I do too. I think that, you know, the other thing I'm wondering is whether or not we'll hear from Toledo himself, whether he will testify during the death penalty phase. What do you think about that, Yosha?
It's hard to tell if that will help or hurt him, because at this point he's already been found guilty. They already have found him guilty of killing his loved one. So I can't imagine anything that he would say would help him. Maybe some extreme remorse if he's able to apologize and own up to his actions, but that's if he's still willing to admit guilt. I mean, he went through a trial, he was pleading not guilty, and just because a jury found him guilty doesn't mean that he's accepted that himself. So I think if he's able to really apologize and it's a deep and heartfelt apology, that might help, but otherwise I don't know if he's going to be able to help himself.
Yeah, I agree with you. It'll be fascinating if he does, and it'll be interesting to hear from his family members and friends and a little bit more about his childhood and what got him there, to see whether there's anything that a juror could grab onto to, you know, save him from the death penalty. We'll be continuing to talk about Toledo in just a minute. We have more of Tyshawn Jackson's testimony. I know that some of you in the chat rooms have said that you didn't catch his testimony. I do think it was really important for the trial, and so we will continue to play some of his testimony in just a minute. But we wanted to talk about something that you were talking about in the chat rooms, and that is this new idea that Amazon has sort of proffered, where they're going to have packages delivered not only to your doorstep, but actually inside your home. Now, on first blush, this may seem very convenient. No more worried about someone stealing your packages, no more worrying about them being ruined by weather or rain, having the ability to just have them right inside your door. But there are some legal concerns that come up in my mind. What do you think of this idea, Yosha?
I think there are a lot of legal concerns here. First of all, I mean, they're trying to probably alleviate the problem of people's packages getting stolen off their stoop. So while it may alleviate one problem, I could see it leading to a lot of other problems. Most obviously, there's a stranger in your home delivering a package.
Right.
Now, I think Amazon has tried to create some safeguards. A camera, I think, that they want to place in the home, a special lock, and all of this costs an additional $250. So it's a big investment, and I think families are only going to want to invest in it if they've had probably theft-related issues in the past. But then it begs the question that you now have a surveillance camera in your home, and someone knows that you're not home or that you're away, and your house is empty. So it's leading to a lot of other potential crimes.
Yeah, it's so, there's so many interesting sort of side stories to this, because you're right. I mean, now it is even more. I have an Alexa at my house, and I sometimes forget it's there because I don't even use it all that often. But on occasion, she'll pipe up and join in the conversation. Like, you know, I don't understand, and I'm like, oh, I'm not even talking to you, and it definitely is listening all the time. And now, if you have a surveillance camera, I mean, Amazon may as well just move into your house and be a member of the family. I think that if you elect to do that, just like I've elected to have Alexa in the house, you're sort of waiving your privacy rights, and to some degree, don't you think?
I think to some degree. I don't know where the camera would be positioned, ultimately probably at the front door, but it really is leading to this idea that we're constantly under surveillance everywhere we go. For those of us who live in big cities, I mean, there's a camera on every block, there's a camera on the subway, and now there's a camera in one's home. So I think you have to evaluate, do you want to give up those privacy rights for convenience? And I think for some people, it's probably a yes.
Well, and some of the smart people in our chat room brought up something that I hadn't made this connection. Amazon is now talking about getting into prescriptions more and more. And so if you have someone who's homebound or even bedbound, who needs their prescriptions, this could really be a lifesaver in a lot of ways, where instead of having to hire someone to go and get your prescriptions and maybe having that person be, busy some days and sort of having a less of a scheduled situation, to have someone from Amazon delivering the prescription drugs that you need straight to your home could certainly be helpful. And there's always, nothing is black and white. It's always, shades of gray and risks and benefits to everything. But it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. We've seen with Uber, and Uber, you're not letting someone into your home, but you're getting into their car, which in some ways can be even more dangerous because they're in control. They could take you anywhere. And while there's been some legal issues for Uber, for the most part, they've done a good job with screening. I guess the same would be incumbent on the Amazon company as well.
Yes, I think Amazon said that everyone who enters a home will have intensive background checks. And I think ultimately it's how quickly these things become normal in our society. I know a few years ago, the idea of Uber was very scary to a lot of people, especially if you were, taking it by yourself. But now it's just part of everyday life. So I would imagine that perhaps this service would also become normalized like that too, which is, again, we're giving up privacy for convenience, but for some people that might be a necessity.
Yeah, it certainly helps those who are homebound or, unable to go out.
Definitely.
I do worry about the health implications of not having any human interaction and sort of just dealing with your computer and having things delivered. It really makes us a whole lot less social, which I think there's repercussions of that. But it's an interesting topic, and I appreciate the chat rooms bringing it to our attention. We have another topic that the chat rooms have brought to our attention that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes, and that is, Sephora is a big cosmetic store, and it's big here in New York City. I think it's at most malls at this point. And a recent story came out where they're being sued because someone claims to have gotten herpes from using the tester lipstick. And I think that there's some interesting legal issues there that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. So bring on any questions or comments about that, and we'll do our best to answer them. But in the meantime, we want to go back to Toledo and continue to watch Tyshawn Jackson's testimony. As we noted before, he really was the key witness. He was called by both the prosecution and the defense, and his testimony was certainly compelling and may have been, as Yosha said, one day for a death penalty case is certainly unusual, and he may have been the nail in that coffin. So we'll continue to watch his testimony as we prepare for that case to continue with the death penalty portion, and we'll be back in just a minute.
I'd like to turn your attention back to October 22nd, 2013. I believe just before the break, you told us that you had gone to school that day and got home around 2 o'clock.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Is that accurate?
Yes, around that time, I believe.
Do you know the name Traquan Williams?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Back in 2013, was his phone number 386-307-4694?
I don't know about how it could have been.
Okay.
I believe so.
Was he a person that you called frequently?
Yes.
Was he entered in the memory of your cellular telephone?
Yes, sir. I believe so.
If that was the number listed, do you have any reason to dispute that?
No.
Did Mr. Williams come over to your home that afternoon?
Yes.
For what purpose?
He had a song that he wanted to record.
And how long did he stay at your home?
Probably like 4 or 5 hours. I don't remember.
After he left, what did you do that evening?
I don't really remember too much. I know I called my girlfriend, talked to her for a while before going to sleep.
Did you go anywhere?
No, I know I didn't leave the house.
You stayed home that night?
Yes, sir.
Who cooked dinner?
My mom.
You remember what she cooked?
I believe it's spaghetti or something.
In addition to calling your girlfriend, I think you said you called her. Did you also have text messages back and forth with your girlfriend?
I'm pretty sure we text every day.
What time did you go to bed that night? Do you remember?
Probably like around 11:30, if I remember correctly.
Was that your typical practice?
I guess I don't really have like a typical practice. Sometime around that time.
Just go to bed when you get tired?
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, you have an odd nighttime ritual.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us about it?
I wake up and I snack a lot in the middle of the night.
Are you the only person in your house that does that?
No.
Who else does that?
My mom.
Your dad also do that?
Yes, but he doesn't live with me, but he does.
What time did you typically wake up?
I don't really know the times. It's just like random times, just wake up in the middle of the night, just go grab like a bowl of cereal or something.
You eat a bowl of cereal in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
Was that a fairly common occurrence for you?
Yeah, pretty much.
Was it a fairly common occurrence for your mom?
Yeah.
Did you often run into her in the kitchen?
Sometimes, not really. It was kind of weird running to her whenever I did, but yeah.
Did you do anything else while you were up during these nighttime hours usually?
I called Courtney.
And how did she feel about that?
She wasn't the happiest, but she answered.
What did you talk about with Courtney when you call her?
I don't really remember. I usually just call her as like, I don't know why. I usually just call her in the middle of the night when I wake up or something. I don't know. We don't really talk about much. You just say I'm sleeping. It makes me and tell me to hang up the phone.
Do you remember calling her on this particular night?
I don't remember it. Like it's been so long ago, but I know I called her, but I just don't really remember it.
Do you know how long the call lasted?
No.
If I told you it lasted 26 seconds, would that seem odd to you?
Sustain.
No.
Sustain.
Aside from getting up and eating that evening, what else did you do that night?
Nothing I can remember.
Did you stay in bed?
Yeah, I went to sleep.
Now, you've got a dog in your house, right?
Yes, sir.
What's the name of the dog?
Mr. Biggs.
Okay, and where does Mr. Biggs sleep?
I'm sleeping in my mom's room.
Always?
Yeah, on the couch. She has a couch in there.
Did you ever let out Mr. Biggs at night?
No.
Why not?
Because he was in my mom's room and I really don't let him out at night.
How big is Mr. Biggs?
He's a Chihuahua.
Did you ever leave your house on the night of October 22nd, 2013 into the morning of October 23rd, 2013?
No, sir.
Did you ever see the defendant during the nighttime hours?
No, sir.
Did you hear any noises coming from his house?
No, sir.
That changed around 6:11, though, right?
Yes, sir.
What happened at 6:11?
Yes, sir.
May it please court.
Court is pleased.
Mr. Jackson, when did you see the defendant?
I believe 6:11 in the morning.
And tell us how that interaction occurred.
I was laying in my bed and I heard a tap on my window.
Were you awake?
No, I was not awake. I was awakened from the tap.
Tell us more.
It was pretty early, so like I was wondering like who it was. I looked up. I have a Time Warner box. Like I had a box in my room for Time Warner or Bright House, and it's had the Time Warner. And it said 6:11. Like who would be knocking at my window at 6:11 in the morning? And I opened my window and I looked and I seen Louis Toledo.
Okay, and where was he?
He was at my window.
Was that in front of your house?
Yes.
Okay. What was he doing?
He was standing there motioning me to come outside.
And what happened next?
I walked to the front door and opened my front door, and he was standing at my front door.
How was he dressed?
He was dressed in black, like a black shirt, some black sweatpants, and some boots.
What did he want?
He asked me for a favor to help him take his wife car somewhere. He didn't exactly say where. He just asked to help him take his wife car somewhere.
And what did you do?
I put my slides on that was by my front door and went next door.
What are your slides?
Excuse me?
What are slides?
Oh, like flip-flops, but without the thong thingy in the middle.
And what were you wearing at that time?
Gym shorts and a tank top.
Did you change your clothes when you got up?
No.
Was that what you had worn to bed?
Yes, most likely. That's pretty much my entire.
Did you take your phone over to the defendant's house when you left?
No, sir.
Why not?
I just didn't have it in my possession right then. I thought it was gonna be like we go here real quick and come back home type of situation. I was just trying to get back in bed before I had to go to school.
What time did you have to go to school that morning?
I usually go to get to school like I think like 8:30 or something like that.
When you went over to the defendant's house, where did you go specifically?
We walked into the driveway.
Tell us what occurred when you got in the driveway.
When we got inside the driveway, the garage was already up. And then he told me to wait there for a moment. He walked inside the house and came back out and handed me the keys.
While you were waiting, where did you wait?
I wait on the hood of the Saturn.
As you sat on, did you sit on the hood of the Saturn?
Yes, sir.
As you sat on the hood of the Saturn, did you notice whether the hood was warm or not?
I didn't notice any warmth coming from the hood I can remember.
While you were sitting on the hood, where did the defendant go?
He went inside the house.
How long was he in there?
It could have been like longer than 10 minutes. I don't really remember.
When he came back out, was he still dressed the same?
Yes, sir.
Did it appear to you in any way that he had changed his clothes?
No.
What occurred when he came out of the house?
He handed me the car keys and asked me to follow him.
Did you notice whether his wife's phone, the black Honda Accord, was there?
Yes, the Honda Accord was there.
Where was it parked?
It was parked in the garage.
How?
Front end, forward, facing the house, like just regular drove in. He didn't back it in or anything like that.
So it was nose in into the garage?
Yes.
Did you notice whether any of the doors or the trunk were ajar?
I seen the trunk was open.
Did you make any observations about the trunk or what was in it?
It seemed a little dirty to me.
In what way?
Like it was dirt on there.
There was dirt on it?
Yes, sir.
Not dirty like messy, there was a lot
No,
of
no,
stuff
yeah,
in it.
like not a lot of stuff in it, like just actual dirt, like dirt. Not messy, just dirt.
Did you make any observations about the defendant's clothes or his shoes?
I noticed his shoes were kind of like had dirt on there.
How long did you spend with him at his house that morning after he gave you the keys?
Like I said, it couldn't have been more than like 10, 15 minutes that we were sitting outside his house.
I'm sorry, in total or after he gave you the keys?
In total, pretty much, because he pretty much went there. He went inside the house, grabbed the keys, and came out, and I just followed him.
What do you mean you followed him?
He started to proceed to go towards I-4.
Was he walking?
No, sir, he was driving.
Which car was he driving?
He was driving the black Honda Accord,
And which car were you driving?
the silver Saturn.
When you got into the Saturn, could you describe for us how it was?
Like, what do you mean?
Was it neat and tidy? Was it messy? Did it appear different than any of the other times you'd ridden in it to school?
It was pretty clean for the most part. I think he had a couple things in there, like kind of out of place, like a stack of papers or something like that. I don't really remember.
But it didn't appear that it had been recently or overly clean.
No, not this.
You were going when you left his house?
Excuse me?
Where were you going that morning?
Well, before he got there, I didn't know.
Were you following him? In which direction were you following him?
We were going towards I-4. I don't know the direction, like longitude, anything like that. We're like going towards I-4 towards Sanford.
Is Sanford south of Deltona?
Yes.
Where did you think you were going that morning?
Honestly, I had no idea. I thought probably like somewhere close, a relative's house or something.
Were you aware that his mother-in-law lived around the corner?
Yes.
Were you traveling in the direction of his mother-in-law's house?
No.
As you drove towards I-4, tell us your perceptions. Tell us where you went, how you drove.
We drove past I-4, and then we started going towards 1792. Then we made a left on 1792 and drove all the way down, going towards Sanford, went over the bridge, and then made a left on, I don't know I think it's still 1792, I believe. And we just continued down 1792.
Was this a long distance from your home?
Yes, quite a way.
Was it further than you expected to drive that
Yes.
far? Where did you eventually end up?
We eventually ended up in a Publix parking lot by Seminole State College. It's community college in Sanford.
Do you recall how long it took you to get there?
I'd say like 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
When you arrived to the Publix parking lot, were you still following the defendant?
Yes, sir.
And what did you see as you pulled into the parking lot?
I seen him wiping out his car.
And describe to us how he was wiping his car, please.
As I pulled into it, I pulled in, he was put inside the parking space. And I pulled behind him, and he was just like wiping down like the edges of the car. Just pretty much just wiping down like he's almost like trying to clean it off or something like that.
The edges of the car. What part
Yes,
of the
sir.
car specifically?
Like the door jamb. You know, like when pretty much like when you close the door, the edge of it.
The vertical edge of it? Or the
The
horizontal edge of it?
horizontal top part of it.
Where else was he wiping?
I don't really remember. I just seen him wiping down the door.
Did he have anything in his hands?
Yes, he had a rag in his hand, and I believe like a spray. I believe it was mean green.
Why do you think it was mean green?
Because it had like a really bright orange color to it, and like you kind of pretty much, if you have it at your home, you know exactly what it is. It's like white and like very really bright orange.
Was this a chemical cleaner that you had used before?
Yes, I've seen it before.
Did you know why the defendant was wiping down the vehicle?
No.
What else did you see him do?
I see him go to the trunk of the car and grab some things.
What specifically?
I noticed the big mat that you use for the back of your car, pretty much to keep the dirt off or the lift up so you can get the spare tire from. I seen that, and I seen a bag.
How big was the bag?
The bag was like a Walmart bag, like any size grocery bag you bring home.
Like a shopping bag?
Yeah, exactly.
And what did you see with respect to the bag?
I believe the mean green in the rag.
What about that? I'm sorry.
I believe he put it inside the bag.
Did you know if there was anything else in the bag?
Not that I know. I didn't see anything else.
Were you paying a lot of attention at that point?
Kind of, but not really. I was really kind of freaking out at that moment, just freaking out, like trying to think about what's going on and how I'm gonna get out of this situation, how I'm gonna get home.
How long did you spend there in the Publix parking lot?
I don't really remember the exact time. I'll say it could be like 10 minutes. It wasn't that long at all.
After after this occurrence in the Publix parking lot, what happened?
After we left the Publix parking lot, he came to the driver there, which I was in, and basically told me to scoot over, and I scooted over, and then he got inside the car and he left the Publix parking lot, and we went.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
What did Mr. Toledo do with the items that he had retrieved from the vehicle?
He put them in the back seat.
In the back seat of what?
The Saturn.
Who drove out of the Publix parking lot?
Toledo.
And where were you in the vehicle?
I was in the passenger side.
Where did you go after you left Publix?
We drove back towards home, the opposite way of 1792, and pretty much started heading back home. And then he turned off into pretty much an apartments complex.
How was he behaving?
I would say pretty suspicious and like just on ease.
If you,
Well, he looked on ease.
hold on.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm going to overrule the objection.
Describe his behavior for us.
He looked out the norm. He was just like kind of frantic almost, I want to say.
What was he doing?
He was driving, like looking around, like just looking everywhere, just kind of
Tell
like
us.
rocking back and forth. Kind of like he was driving, like looking back and forth, looking like he's like looking for something.
Was he speaking to you?
He didn't speak much to me, but he said one thing really.
What did he say?
He said he snapped.
When he said that to you, how did he say it?
Just like, I'm sorry, I can't really explain. Like something happened or something like that. Like he had bottled up emotion inside him or something like that, you know?
Was he looking, where was he looking?
At that point, he was looking at me.
Did he turn to look at you just to say that?
Yes.
Did you ask him what he meant?
No, sir.
Why?
I didn't want further details. I kind of seen what happened earlier, and like then him saying that kind of put two and two together that something wrong happened. And honestly, I wanted to get home.
Instead of going home, you said you went to an apartment complex.
Yes, sir.
Tell us what happened at the apartment complex.
As we put into the apartment complex, he seen like a dumpster, and then he rode to the dumpster, and he stopped the car and pulled some stuff out the back seat and put it inside the dumpster.
What did he put in the back end of the dumpster specifically?
I believe it's the mat in the bag.
Was that all that he threw in the dumpster?
That I seen. I couldn't really see him.
How long were you there next to the dumpster?
Not long at all. I can't really tell you the exact time how long we were there, but it wasn't for a long time at all.
Did you get out of the vehicle?
No, sir.
Where were you looking while he was throwing things in the dumpster?
I couldn't really see much, but like in front of me, because the way he parked the car, and like the dumpster was right here, and the passenger side was by the dumpster, so I couldn't really see much around me.
When he got back into the vehicle, was he in the driver's seat?
Yes, sir.
Was he dressed the same way?
Yes.
How was he behaving?
Pretty much the same. Like he was like in a rush, or like it's kind of hard to explain. Like it was out of the ordinary. It wasn't acting like itself.
Where did you go after you left the apartment complex?
We drove back on 1792 and drove back home.
As you left the apartment complex, did you know what apartment complex that was?
Not off the back of my head.
Had you ever been there before?
No.
Did you observe any other vehicles at that hour of the morning in the apartment complex? Or in the nearby properties?
I've noticed, only thing I really noticed, like, there's a lot of buses out, like, early in the morning around town. Everybody went to school, so I seen buses. I also seen a lady taking her kid to the bus stop.
Did you see a trash truck?
Yes, I seen the trash truck also.
Did the defendant say anything when he saw the trash truck?
Yes, I heard him say the word down, because it looked like the trash truck was picking up, like, the trash already. Like, we were, like, going, like, it's like, like he just emptied out another trash can, like, from, like, apartment or something next to it.
Did it look like the trash truck had already collected where he threw the things away?
I don't know.
As you leave the apartment complex, where do you go?
We get back on 1792 and head home.
And did you go directly home?
No, I asked, can I get out of the car and walk to 7-Eleven?
How close were you to your home when you decided to walk the rest of the way?
7-Eleven, it was probably like, I don't know, a couple minutes away from my house. Probably take like 2 or 3 minutes to walk home.
In the ride between the apartment complex and the 7-Eleven, did you have any conversation with the defendant?
No.
Did you want to ask him any questions about what you had seen?
No, sir.
When you got out at the 7-Eleven, were you actually in the parking lot?
No, I got dropped off right before the 7-Eleven, like it's almost right in front of our neighborhood. So it probably took me like 7 minutes to get to 7-Eleven from where we were.
Did you go inside the store?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember what you purchased?
Yes, a Black & Mild.
What is that?
It's like a mini cigar with like a plastic tip on it.
After you made that purchase, where did you go?
After I made the purchase, I walked home.
And what did you do when you got home?
I called my mom.
Did you reach her?
Not at first. I kept trying to call her, but she wasn't answering. She was at work.
Do you know how many times you called her that morning?
Not off the bat, but I know I called her like a lot, back to back.
Why were you calling your mom a lot?
Because everything that just happened, it's really like a scary situation for me, and I didn't know what to do. So I wanted to call my mom before I talked to the police or anything, let her know what's up.
Did the police arrive near your home that morning?
Yes.
Did you see Felicita Perez that morning as well?
Yes.
Did either the police or Miss Perez ask you any questions?
Yes. Asked me did I see Louis that morning.
And what did you tell them?
I told him no.
Why did you tell them no?
Honest, I was just scared. Honestly, I was very scared. I wanted to talk to my mom before anything. I finally reached her. I don't know after how many calls, but I finally got to her and reached her and told her like something's really going down over here, and she left her job and rushed home.
Do you remember what time she got home?
No.
Do you remember if the defendant was still at his house at that point?
I seen him, yes.
I want to back up just a minute.
Okay.
Between the time that you got home from the 7-Eleven and the time that your mom actually came home, what did you do during that period?
I went in the house. I think then I came outside. I sat on the front porch, smoked the Black and Mild. I kept trying to call my mom. Pretty much, she wouldn't answer. I called Courtney. She answered. I kind of briefly told her what was going on, just like just talk to somebody, let them know what's going on, and that's pretty much it. Hung up the phone.
In this period where you're calling your mom and your girlfriend, did you have an opportunity to see the defendant again?
Yes.
And tell us how that occurred.
I was sitting on my front porch, and I seen him drive past.
And as you saw him drive past, what did you see specifically?
Like he was dressed, getting ready to go for work or something like that.
Did he look up onto your porch?
Actually, he didn't look up.
When he drove past, what did you do?
I was texting Courtney, I believe, and I believe the text. Or something like that.
Why?
Because I thought like if maybe he stopped and see me like trying to communicate with somebody, like he really thought something was up, and I didn't want him to think that.
Had your mom gotten home at that point?
No, she was not home yet.
How much after that did she arrive home? And you can ballpark it, it's fine.
Okay. Probably probably an hour and a half or so.
How many police had assembled in the neighborhood at that point?
A lot. I don't know count, but there was a lot of police officers there.
Did you stay out on your front porch the whole time?
Pretty much I walked in and walked out every once in a while.
Did you want to talk to the police?
Yes, I did.
Why didn't you talk to them when they first came over?
I didn't talk to my mom before, and I wanted to let her know like exactly what was going on before I be taken off somewhere and probably questions for hours at a time, and she don't know where I'm at. And on top of that, I was pretty scared, to be honest with you.
Were you at home when the defendant was arrested and taken from the scene?
Yes, sir.
Did you see him getting taken away?
Yes, sir.
Did you talk to the police after that?
Yes.
How long after that?
Pretty much as soon as he left, we went and talked to the police. As soon as we seen him getting carried off.
Where did the conversation occur?
It occurred at my house. It's at my front room.
Inside the house?
Yes.
How many officers came into your home?
I think 2.
Who was present besides you and the 2 officers?
My mother.
What did you tell the officers at that point?
I told them about me Louis come to my house and him come to get me, help him drop the car off.
What else did you tell him?
That was pretty much it.
Did you tell him where the car was?
Yes.
Did you tell him exactly where the car was?
Yes. It's on the Publix parking lot in Sanford.
Did you tell them anything else about the dumpsters or anything that happened there after?
No, sir.
Why not?
Honestly, I didn't want like anything to do with it. Like, I just wanted I wanted to help. I just wanted I was hoping if I told them where the car at, everything would be okay and everything would be solved. But I noticed it wasn't. So I came forward with more information to try to help out.
The first time that you talked to the case, was it still just a missing person? Excuse me. The first time you talked to the police, was it still just a missing persons case? If he does, Your Honor, I'd ask that he be able to answer the question.
I'll overrule it.
Was it still just a missing person case at that point?
Yes, I believe so. It pretty much was nothing really was figured out. It was pretty much I was still kind of wondering what's going on, you know. They couldn't find the kids or the wife, but I don't know if it was a missing person case just right then, right there.
How long did you talk to the police? Do you remember?
The first time?
Yeah, the first time that you had them in your house.
Welcome back to Law News Network. I'm Heather Hansen here with Yosha Gunasekera, and we have been talking about the Toledo case and the anticipation of the death penalty part of that case, which is anticipated to happen later on this week. We're wondering who will be called as aggravating factor witnesses and mitigating factor witnesses. Yosha, we just heard from Jackson. I don't anticipate he's going to be called on either side. But in just a minute, we're going to go to the testimony of Mr. Dredden, who was the lover of the victim. She was having an affair with him. He was having an affair with her. He was also married. Do you think we'll hear from him again, given their relationship, to speak to the impact on his life? Or do you think because of the fact they were both having affairs, that might be sort of stayed away from a little bit?
I think anyone who can talk about the loss of the life of these individuals will be important, no matter how they're connected. Just the fact that there's now a gaping absence in their life because someone was brutally murdered is certainly someone that the prosecution may call as an aggravating factor witness. I think that type of testimony is especially powerful because it's just so emotional.
Yes, yeah, it definitely, as you said, it brings out the personal. We hear a lot more about the personal factors of the players during this stage of the proceedings. So we will be taking you to that case later on this week as soon as it's live. And we're going to be showing you in just a minute some of the testimony that we've already heard from Dredden, more liability testimony than personal testimony, but certainly has some hints of that are worth noting. But in the meantime, we wanted to talk a little bit about a case that the chat rooms and Kit in the chat room had brought to our attention, because I know for me, I pass by Sephora all the time, and I go into Sephora all the time, and a few of my lipsticks are from Sephora. Yep. And a woman is suing Sephora, saying that she used their tester lipstick, which they have many of them there, and that she contracted herpes. And I'm wondering what you think about this case, and I want to sort of break it down. But just first off, what are your thoughts about this particular cause of action?
It's an interesting one, and I think can speak to many of us who have been, in Sephora or any kind of makeup or department store where there's testers out there. I think what's going to be really interesting to see is if they can have some sort of chain of command. I mean, can they prove that she actually got oral herpes from Sephora or a specific tester? Seems like that would be pretty difficult.
And that's what, Plum actually pointed that out in this discussion on the chat room. She said, how are they going to prove that she got it from that? And, can the defense then go and interview everyone she's ever kissed and, get into all the different ways that herpes can be caused? And you found an interesting statistic that's a little gross.
Yeah, I just found this, I think, on a news channel website that was covering this story, that between 50 and 80% of U.S. adults have had or have oral herpes. So it's people who have, I guess, like cold sores or anything like that. I mean, you have it. And so that is another complication. I mean, she could have just easily gotten it from somewhere else. It's not some specific rare disease that you could potentially traced back to a certain location.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be difficult case to prove. And sometimes these cases that are difficult cases to prove, and you know what, Grits just made a really good point that herpes can lie dormant for years, which also, you know, many years ago she may have used a lipstick at a different place. And who's to say it's this Sephora? What if she was going to other Sephoras? I mean, it really just is going to be very difficult to prove from a causation standpoint. But when we bring these cases, you have negligence, and you have to prove negligence, and then causation, and you have to prove causation, and then damages. So if she has herpes, she has damages. Negligence, let's start there. Do you think it's going to be easy to prove that it's negligent to have these testers out if there's also the Q-tips for you to use to try to keep your lips relatively safe?
My first instinct is that negligence is going to be really hard to prove here because they have taken precautions, so you don't just have to stick the tube of lipstick on your lips. And I'm trying to think what else could they do to be safer other than just getting rid of the testers, which I think people would have a huge complaint about because a lot of people want to try on makeup before they make a purchase. So I think the negligence part is going to be pretty hard.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because a lot of times negligence is proven or not proven by what other people in the industry are doing. And so it's Sephora, all the Sephoras do that, but also other places like, as you noted, department stores. They do something similar where they have, you know, testers. I guess that usually it's more the people who work there are putting it on, so maybe that's a little bit different. I don't watch the way that they sort of sanitize the tester. And I guess there's an argument to be made by the plaintiff, the person suing, that maybe those, you know, you see those little bubbles of lipstick that are available, maybe those should be made available to everyone. But that does seem to be a stretch, and this certainly does seem to be, at least now, the way that this is being done across the industry. And also, you would think if this was rampant, that this was a good way to catch herpes, given the number of people who are in Sephora using those lipsticks. We'd see a lot more of these cases, don't you think?
Exactly, and that kind of begs the question if people are even getting it, or do they even know they're getting it from there? Again, it could be dormant. It could have been they already had it from years ago. So it's really hard to prove, and it really, I mean, if this case was to go forward and this person was to win and get damages, it really could change the entire industry, because I think everywhere I've been that sells makeup has the same testers in the same way.
Fight for TA just made a point and said it's negligent to put the public lipstick on your lips. Now, do you think that Sephora is going to argue that they put those out there for you to test them on your hand and not to test them on your lips? What do you think about that argument?
So in certain situations, we find ourselves assuming some risk. So for example, if you go to a baseball game and you get hit in the head with a baseball, you've actually assumed that risk by buying a ticket. So I think there is something to be said about people who choose to use the testers. They're assuming a risk. No one's forcing you or asking you to. So that's an interesting thought as well.
It's a great thought. And then also there's a difference between you going yourself and sort of testing them on your hand or on your lip, or having someone who works there coming at you. We were talking about how sometimes they're pretty aggressive, not just at Sephora, but at these places they want to give you a makeover. It's an interesting point. Addie just pointed out she won't even put on hats at Macy's because she's afraid of other people. You know, and it's true. You are certainly running the risk of other people's germs the minute that you start trying things on. There are some people who wash everything that they get before they, you know, and when we buy a lipstick, it's all wrapped up and hasn't been used. So it's going to be an interesting case and one to watch. If this is successful, I think that this lawyer may have many other similar cases because there are enough people at Sephora who are using these types of things. Kit Kat just said maybe at Sephora they should be putting up a sign that says use these at your own risk. That's a very good point, Kit, and that is certainly something that would help to alleviate any liability on top of the things that we've already talked about, to say, you know, if you use these, if you take them, if they do that, it's incumbent on the people who work there not to be encouraging you to use them, I guess.
Exactly. And I was As we're sitting here, I mean, beyond Sephora, if anyone's ever gotten their makeup done anywhere, at any salon, I mean, you don't know. They're reusing the makeup. They can't afford to buy new products for every person. So it seems like this could be repercussions for a lot of different industries.
Yeah, it's yesterday I had my makeup done for something I did for television, and I did note that the woman who did my makeup washed every single brush, like, thoroughly between the person before me and me. And so that is something that I don't think we always see at the department stores and at some of these other places. So, it's good to, and now wrongful convictions points out that, we can't put caution labels on everything. And that's true as well, though the lawyers might like you to wrongful conviction. Sometimes we can be a little bit of Debbie Downers and say you need to warn everyone about everything and don't do that and don't touch that and write up a contract before you do anything. And sometimes you just have to take your chances and try on the lipstick.
I know. Lawyers are always thinking about liability everywhere.
Right.
So.
We see it everywhere. So let's go back to the Toledo case as we continue to prepare for the rest of the week. We do have a big trial starting this week, and some of you have been starting to talk about this a little bit, so I don't want it to go unsaid. Adam Matos is on trial for the murder of 4 people, Gregory and Margaret Brown and Megan Brown and her boyfriend Nicholas Leonard. So Megan Brown and the defendant, Adam Matos, had a relationship. They had a son. He was 4 years old at the time. His name was Tristan. And then they broke up. Megan then started dating Nicholas Leonard. And according to prosecutors, Adam became very incensed about this and very jealous. He came to the house, according to prosecutors, on the 28th. And there was, I know you've been following this case too, Yosha. The fact that Megan called in an aggravated assault to the police, and the police came out there on the 28th, and we don't know the details of how they left, but they left without any arrest. And then allegedly later on that day, not only Megan, but her boyfriend and her parents were murdered. I mean, this case is awfully sad and upsetting and really seems like an opportunity lost.
Yes, she apparently told multiple people in her life that she was fearful of Adam, that she thought that he was going to kill her, but she was afraid to continually report to the authorities because she thought Adam would take away the 4-year-old child that they had in common. So it's a very tragic case. There's a lot of witnesses. I expect it's going to be a long trial.
Yeah, the judge is saying it may last until November 22nd, right around Thanksgiving. So it's one that we're definitely, we're going to be watching very closely here at Law News. There's the defendant, Adam Matos, on your screen right now. Jury selection is going on as we speak, and there may come a time later this afternoon when we're able to stream jury selection, but until that happens, there's Adam Matos before he was clean shaven. Gosh, that makes a difference, doesn't it, Yosha? I mean, when you look with the beard, he looks a lot more menacing than clean shaven. When you're, and there he is with the beard again, when you're defending someone who is a criminal defendant, how much weight do you put into, or stock do you put into their appearance and trying to do the best you can to make them appear as unmenacing as possible?
Everything is so important in a criminal case, and appearance is one of those things that we have to address. One of the important things is the clothing. That's we want to make sure that if the client is coming from jail, that they're not dressed in the Department of Corrections orange jumpsuit, because that definitely looks menacing. That doesn't play well to a jury. But then any kind of physical appearance, if they can clean themselves up, I think that those, whether consciously or subconsciously, affect a jury, and you want to give your client the best possible chance.
Yeah, and it seems that's what they're doing. I mean, Matos looks completely different now that he's sort of been shaven and dressed up. Let's look at both sides. If you're the prosecutor and you're picking a jury today, is there any? It seems like this case seems to me like it's a pretty good case for the prosecution. Is there any juror that's especially concerning to you on the prosecution side that you want to try to avoid?
Anybody who maybe has had a loved one falsely accused by the police, or has had a loved one go through the criminal justice system, those are definitely always people that the prosecution tries to get off, just because they're more susceptible to believing that police lie or people are wrongfully accused. So that's one person. But I think based on the facts in this case, it's just so grotesque. It's just, there's so many witnesses, and I it appears, based on what we know now, and of course we don't know all the facts. I mean, the trial hasn't even started, but it seems like it might be a slam dunk for the prosecution here.
Yeah, and so if you're the defense, what kind of rabbit are you looking to pull out of your hat here?
Any kind of reasonable doubt. So again, it's so easy to forget that the defense doesn't have to put on any sort of case here. It's just poking holes. And what I like to say in some of my summations is, you might think my client probably did it, but that's not enough to get to probable cause, to beyond a reasonable doubt, excuse me.
That's right.
And so I think that that's kind of shocking to people because they think, well, I'm probably certain, but I'm not beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, and that's a great thing to say in your close, because I think that sometimes we've talked about this a lot on Law News, because as you viewers at home watch the charge being given to the jury, we talk about how frustrating it is and how confusing it can be and how oftentimes that leads to hung juries. That's what jurors get caught up on. And so if you as the attorney can do that in your closing, to say something that we say so often, probably, oh yeah, he probably did it. Well, that's not good enough. And so to really show them the bar that they have to hit for beyond a reasonable doubt is fabulous. Your clients are lucky to have you doing that, because that's definitely helpful. And I think you're right. Here, there's not a whole lot more to do in the Adam Matos case other than that. Now, are there certain jurors that you want to avoid on the defense side? Probably most, but how would you sort of parse that out?
I think anybody who has been the victim of a crime, anyone who's been the victim of a violent crime, people who have children, even though the people here killed were not young, I mean, it was parents and children, anyone who's had abuse at the hands of a spouse or a boyfriend. But really, I think...
That's everybody.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people are going to be bad for the defense here. I think they're going to... I think they're really needing to also avoid having anyone who's heard about the trial beforehand, anyone who's been tainted. I mean, clearly this is a huge trial. It's a huge trial in the area, and it's making national news. So you want people who can come in with a clear mind and haven't read too much about it or don't know about it yet.
Yeah, it's definitely, you're right, it's making national news. These cases we've seen now, we have the Toledo case, which seemed to be a slam dunk, and the jury certainly agreed. The Willis case that we've been covering, that seems to be a slam dunk, with 3 different cases ultimately. And then this case, so many times our viewers get frustrated by hung juries, but these cases seem to be slam dunks. Why do you think we're not seeing pleas in any of these cases?
Because in these cases, I don't think the prosecutor is incentivized to give any plea. They have such a strong case that they don't want to give up anything. Oftentimes in pleas, it's either for less serious cases or cases where they feel like they might lose that trial and the person might walk free. These are not those type of cases. And I think you see less pleas when, it's capital murder. When it's murder, I think you see less pleas in those cases. Right.
You want to make examples and be sure to have some sort of solace for the people left behind. So we've covered quite a few of very difficult cases in the past few weeks at Law News. Some violent crimes, and the Adam Matos one will not be any different. It'll be interesting to see whether he testifies in his own defense. I get the sense that he's charming from some of the things that I've read, and he certainly is attractive. A lot of the people have commented on how attractive he is. Do those facts make it more likely that he might testify if he's really a compelling witness?
I think it's going to come down to what he can say. And his attorneys are no doubt going to practice lines of questioning. But at the end of the day, I mean, he may look great and present well in the stand, but if the prosecution is going to cross-examine him and make him, tell, lies or things that just seem so incredible to a jury, that's ultimately going to really hurt him. And I think that would hurt him also at the later sentencing phase, because I think nobody likes it, jurors, judges, when someone testifies and then is found guilty because they're clearly lying. So that's never good.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting case to watch. In the meantime, though, we do want to go back to listen to the testimony of Dredden. He is the current lover at the time of her death of the victim in the Toledo case, and he testified at some length, both on